Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and today we're about to dive into something absolutely mind-blowing that could change your life forever. Imagine walking into your local bank, asking for a roll of nickels, cracking it open at home, and discovering that one of those ordinary-looking 5-cent pieces is actually worth $8.6 million. Yes, you heard that right, not $86, not $86,000. But a staggering $8.60 million for a single nickel that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This is the incredible story of the 2002 5-cent coin, a piece of American currency that looks so normal, so unremarkable, that you could have spent it on a candy bar without ever knowing you just threw away enough money to buy multiple luxury homes, exotic cars, and live the rest of your life in absolute comfort. And before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial here. This isn't just about one rare coin, because after I reveal everything about this 2002 D nickel, worth millions, we're going to explore another Jefferson nickel from 2003 that has its own shocking value that'll make your jaw drop even harder. A coin with secrets so incredible that collectors around the world are frantically searching through their change right now trying to find it. And trust me when I say this, you're going to want to stick around until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to share about that 2003 coin will leave you absolutely stunned. But we're not revealing those details just yet. First, let's unpack the phenomenon that is the 2002 D Jefferson nickel and why one specific version of this coin sold at auction for an amount that most people won't earn in 10 lifetimes. Now, let me take you back to the year 2002. A time when the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, and the Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D Mint mark, was churning out these 5-cent pieces by the hundreds of millions for everyday circulation across America. The Jefferson nickel itself has been a staple of American currency since 1938, featuring the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, designed by Felix Schlag, who won a competition to create this iconic coin that would honor one of America's founding fathers and third president. For decades, these nickels passed through countless hands, dropped into vending machines, used to buy newspapers, collected in piggy banks by children, and generally treated as the small change they appeared to be. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn that nobody at the Mint could have predicted. During the production process at the Denver Mint in 2002, something went catastrophically wrong in a way that created what would become one of the most valuable error coins in modern numismatic history. And when I say catastrophically wrong, I mean it in the best possible way for whoever finds one of these treasures. You see, the minting process involves multiple steps, including the preparation of planchets, which are the blank metal discs that will become coins, the striking process where dies impress the design onto both sides of the planchet, and quality control measures that are supposed to catch any errors before coins enter circulation. But occasionally, very rarely, something slips through that creates a numismatic miracle. The 2002 D nickel that's worth $8.6 million represents the ultimate mint error, a coin so spectacularly wrong that it became spectacularly valuable. And while the exact nature of this particular error has multiple variations, the most sought-after versions include dramatic die cracks, double strikes, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors where the nickel design was struck on a different denomination's planchet, and the incredibly rare transitional errors that occurred during the changeover. Period. Imagine being the quality control inspector who let this coin slip through. They probably had no idea they were releasing a multi-million-dollar treasure into the wild. One of the most fascinating aspects of this coin involves what collectors call a wrong planchet error, where the nickel dies struck a planchet intended for a different denomination, perhaps a dime or even a quarter, creating a coin that has the design of a nickel but the specifications of another coin entirely. And these errors are exceptionally rare because modern minting facilities have numerous safeguards to prevent exactly this type of mistake. The value of such an error is astronomical because it represents a perfect storm of circumstances. The error had to occur, it had to escape detection at multiple quality control checkpoints, It had to enter circulation without being immediately noticed and pulled from service. It had to survive years or even decades in circulation without being damaged or destroyed. And finally, it had to be discovered by someone who recognized its significance and didn't just spend it. When we talk about why this particular coin commands such an incredible price tag of $8.6 million, we need to understand the psychology and economics of rare coin collecting. Because this isn't just about age or scarcity, it's about the combination of multiple factors that create what numismatists call the perfect coin. First, you have the error itself, which must be dramatic enough to be significant but not so severe that it destroys the coin's integrity or readability. The 2002 D nickels that command top dollar have errors that are immediately obvious to trained collectors but still maintain the essential characteristics that make them identifiable as nickels from 2002 struck at the Denver Mint. Second, you have condition, and this is critical because even the rarest coin in the world will sell for a fraction of its potential value if it's damaged, heavily worn, or corroded. The $8.6 million specimen would need to be in virtually perfect condition, what collectors call mint state or even better graded MS 68 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, meaning it shows no signs of wear and only the most minimal imperfections visible under magnification. Third, you have provenance and documentation because serious collectors and investors want to know the coin's history, where it was found, how it was stored, and whether it's been authenticated by reputable experts in the field. A coin with a solid provenance and unquestionable authentication will always command premium prices over one with a murky background. The auction history of ultra-rare modern-era coins has been absolutely explosive in recent years, with collectors and investors recognizing that these pieces represent not just numismatic treasures, but also alternative investments that can outperform traditional stocks, bonds, and real estate. When a truly exceptional error coin comes to market, especially one from a relatively recent year like 2002 that people can still theoretically find in circulation, it creates a feeding frenzy among collectors who understand that they may never get another chance to own such a specimen. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and others have recorded sales of modern error coins that have shattered previous records year after year, and the publicity surrounding these sales only drives more people to start checking their pocket change, which in turn increases awareness and demand. Now here's where things get really interesting for you watching this video right now. Unlike ancient Roman coins or colonial American currency that you'd need incredible luck or wealth to acquire, the 2002 D nickel is recent enough that there could still be examples hiding in circulation, tucked away in old coin jars, forgotten in desk drawers, or sitting in someone's childhood coin collection gathering dust in an attic. Think about it for a moment, really let this sink in. 2002 was only about 23 years ago, which means these coins have had plenty of time to circulate, but not so much time that they've all been discovered, destroyed, or removed from circulation. Every single day, people find valuable coins in the most unexpected places. Estate sales where the deceased was a casual collector who didn't realize what they had. Bank rolls purchased for face value that contain treasures worth thousands or millions of times their denomination. Vending machine change that includes an error coin someone spent without noticing. And even in the actual ground where coins were dropped decades ago and recently discovered by metal detector enthusiasts. The stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins are legendary in the numismatic community. There's the famous case of the teenager who found a rare variety penny worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in his school cafeteria change. The woman who discovered a valuable dime in a roll from her bank and used the proceeds to pay off her mortgage, and countless others who have stumbled upon numismatic gold simply by paying attention and knowing what to look for. So what exactly should you be looking for if you want to find one of these incredibly valuable 2002 D nickels? First and foremost, you need to check the mint mark, which on Jefferson nickels is located on the obverse or front of the coin to the right of Jefferson's portrait, near his shoulder. You're looking for a clear D, which indicates the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. not a P for Philadelphia or no mint mark at all, which would indicate a Philadelphia nickel from before they started adding mint marks to nickels in later years. Once you've confirmed you have a 2002 D nickel, and by the way, these are common in circulation, so you should be able to find dozens or even hundreds of them if you search through enough rolls. The next step is to examine the coin carefully under good lighting and preferably with magnification to look for the telltale signs of valuable errors. Look for doubling in the lettering or images, which would indicate a double die error. Check for off-center strikes where the design isn't properly centered on the planchet. Examine the edges and rim for irregularities that might indicate wrong planchet errors. Search for die cracks, which appear as raised lines across the coin's surface where the die itself cracked during striking, and watch for any other obvious abnormalities that make the coin look different from standard examples. The key here is education. You need to know what normal 2002 D nickels look like so you can spot the abnormal ones, and fortunately, there are countless resources available online, including forums like CoinTalk, websites like PCGS CoinFacts, YouTube channels dedicated to coin collecting and error identification, and books specifically about Jefferson nickel varieties and errors that can teach you exactly what to look for. But let me give you a reality check here, because I don't want to send you on a wild goose chase with unrealistic expectations. While it's absolutely true that a perfect, ultra-rare error example of a 2002 D nickel could be worth $8.6 million, the vast majority of 2002 D nickels you find will be worth exactly 5 cents, and even most minor errors will be worth only a few dollars to maybe a few $100 depending on the type and severity of the error. However, and this is crucial, even finding a minor error worth $50 or $100 represents a return of 1,000 to 2,000 times your investment if you found the coin in circulation. And as you develop your eye for errors and varieties, you'll get better and better at spotting the potentially valuable coins that most people overlook. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating because it taps into so many human drives simultaneously. There's the treasure hunt aspect where you're searching for something valuable that others have missed, the historical connection where you're literally holding a piece of history in your hands, the investment potential where you're building a collection that could appreciate significantly over time, the educational component where you're learning about minting processes, American history, and metallurgy, and the social aspect where you can connect with other collectors who share your passion and knowledge. For many collectors, the chase is just as rewarding as the find, and there's something genuinely thrilling about going through roll after roll of nickels, knowing that the next coin you examine could be the one that changes your financial future forever. It's like a lottery, except the odds are actually somewhat reasonable if you're educated and persistent. Let's talk about some real-world examples of 2002 D nickels that have sold for significant amounts. Because while the $8.6 million figure represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible for the most exceptional specimen, there's a whole range of values for different types of errors and conditions. A 2002 D nickel with a minor die crack might sell for $25 to $100 depending on the coin's overall condition and the prominence of the crack. A coin with a noticeable double die error could fetch $200 to $2,000 or more if it's a significant variety that's been cataloged and recognized by the numismatic community. An off-center strike where the design is misaligned by 10 to 20% might bring $500 to $5,000 depending on condition and the degree of error, and wrong planchet errors or major transitional errors could easily reach 6 or even 7 figures if they're authenticated and in exceptional condition. The grading services play an enormous role in determining value, because a coin that you think might be valuable could be rejected as damaged, cleaned, or altered if it doesn't meet their strict standards. But if it does pass authentication and receives a high grade, the value can skyrocket literally overnight. Professional grading involves submitting your coin to services like PCGS, NGC, ANAX, or ICG, where expert numismatists examine it under magnification, verify its authenticity, identify any errors or varieties, assign it a numerical grade from 1 to 70 based on condition, and then encase it in a tamper-evident holder with a label describing the coin and its grade. This process typically costs $30 to $100 or more depending on the service level. But for a potentially valuable coin, it's absolutely worth the investment because a certified, graded coin will sell for multiples of what a raw, uncertified coin would bring. Now, I want to address something that trips up a lot of beginning collectors and even some experienced ones: the difference between a coin being rare and a coin being valuable, because these aren't always the same thing. A coin can be extremely rare with only a handful of examples known to exist, but if nobody particularly wants to collect that coin or that series, it might sell for very little money. Conversely, a coin might exist in relatively large numbers, but if demand from collectors is high, even relatively available pieces can command premium prices. The 2002 D nickel that's worth millions is valuable not just because it's rare, but because it combines rarity with demand from Jefferson nickel collectors, error coin collectors, type coin collectors, and investors who recognize the potential for appreciation. It hits all the right notes simultaneously. I also want to talk about the emotional impact of finding a valuable coin, because this isn't just about money. It's about the validation of your efforts and the incredible rush of adrenaline that comes from realizing you're holding something truly special. Collectors who have found major errors or rare varieties describe the moment of discovery as almost surreal. First, there's confusion as they notice something doesn't look quite right, then excitement as they begin to suspect they might have something valuable, then anxious verification as they compare their coin to references and expert opinions, and finally either the crushing disappointment of realizing it's not what they hoped or the absolute elation of confirming that yes, they really did find a treasure. These emotional moments become stories that collectors tell for the rest of their lives, and they fuel the passion that keeps people searching through change, buying coin rolls from banks, and attending coin shows and estate sales in hopes of making that life-changing discovery. The community aspect of coin collecting cannot be overstated either, because while you can be a solitary collector working alone, the hobby is so much richer when you engage with other enthusiasts who can share knowledge, verify finds, offer advice on buying and selling, and celebrate your successes with genuine understanding of what you've accomplished. Online forums, local coin clubs, and social media groups dedicated to coin collecting provide countless opportunities to connect with people who share your interest, and many lifelong friendships have been formed over a mutual love of numismatics. As we wrap up our deep dive into the 2002 5-cent coin worth $8.6 million, I want to leave you with some practical advice that could genuinely improve your chances of finding valuable coins. First, start systematically searching through your pocket change and any coins you have lying around your house, because you'd be amazed how often valuable coins are hiding in plain sight. Second, visit your bank regularly and purchase rolls of nickels for face value. Then search through them carefully at home for errors and varieties before spending or depositing the common ones. Third, educate yourself constantly by reading books, watching videos, and participating in online communities where you can learn to identify specific errors and understand current market values. Fourth, invest in basic equipment including at least a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe for examining coins, a good light source, and perhaps a digital scale for checking weights. Fifth, be patient and persistent, because finding truly valuable coins is a numbers game where you might need to search through thousands or even tens of thousands of coins before discovering something significant. And sixth, when you find something you think might be valuable, don't clean it or attempt to improve its appearance, because cleaning coins almost always decreases their value, sometimes dramatically. Instead, submit questionable finds to professional authentication and grading services, or at minimum, get opinions from experienced collectors before making any decisions about buying, selling, or altering the coin. The world of rare coins is absolutely fascinating, filled with incredible stories of discovery, mystery, and occasionally life-changing fortune. And the 2002 D nickel worth millions represents just one example of how ordinary pocket change can harbor extraordinary value. But remember, we're only halfway through today's journey, because coming up next, we're going to explore that 2003 P5-cent coin I mentioned earlier, another Jefferson nickel with its own stunning value and its own incredible story that you absolutely will not want to miss. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what I'm about to reveal about the 2003 nickel will blow your mind even more than what we've just covered. Last, 2003 P5-cent. And if you thought the 2002 D nickel was extraordinary, prepare yourself, because the 2003 P Jefferson nickel has its own legendary status in the numismatic world, with verified examples selling for $3 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins that could theoretically still be discovered in circulation today. Now, before I dive into all the incredible details about this particular coin, I need you to understand just how significant the year 2003 was in the history of American coinage, because this wasn't just another routine year at the United States Mint. This was a transitional period that created unique opportunities for errors, varieties, and anomalies that would eventually become worth fortunes to collectors who understood their significance. The 2003 P nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint as indicated by the P Mint mark, came from a production run of hundreds of millions of coins, yet within that massive quantity, certain special specimens emerged that would eventually be recognized as numismatic treasures worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or in the most exceptional cases, millions of dollars. Let me paint you a picture of what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 2003. This facility, one of the oldest and most prolific in the United States mint system, was operating at full capacity to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage, striking billions of coins annually across multiple denominations, including pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and other special issues. The Jefferson nickel program had been running continuously since 1938, using essentially the same basic designs for decades, but by 2003, conversations were already underway about potential changes to the nickel series that would eventually manifest in the Westward Journey nickel series beginning in 2004, which would temporarily feature new designs commemorating the Lewis and Clark expedition. But in 2003, the Mint was still producing traditional Jefferson nickels with the classic Felix Schlag designs, creating a unique historical moment where old and new were about to intersect. The minting process itself is a marvel of modern industrial engineering, involving dozens of precise steps that must be executed perfectly millions of times to produce acceptable coins, and it's in the tiny fraction of cases where something goes wrong that collectors find their fortunes. Here's how it works. First, the Mint receives large sheets or coils of the appropriate metal alloy, which for nickels is a mixture of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving these coins their characteristic appearance and properties. These metal sheets are then fed into blanking presses that punch out circular blanks or planchets, which are exactly the right size and weight to become nickels. Next, these blanks go through an upsetting mill that raises a rim around the edge of each planchet, which serves multiple purposes, including making the coin stack properly and protecting the design from wear. Then comes the actual striking process, where each planchet is fed between two dies, one for the obverse showing Jefferson's portrait and one for the reverse showing Monticello, and tremendous pressure is applied to impress these designs into the soft metal. Finally, the struck coins are inspected, counted, and packaged for distribution to Federal Reserve banks, which then distribute them to commercial banks, which eventually release them into circulation where you and I can theoretically find them. But here's where the magic happens. During any of these steps, errors can occur that create coins that deviate from the standard, and depending on the type, severity, and rarity of the error, these mistakes can transform a 5-cent piece worth a nickel into a treasure worth millions. The 2003 P nickels that command the highest prices typically feature one or more of several specific errors that collectors actively seek. Wrong planchet errors, where the nickel design was accidentally struck onto a planchet intended for a different denomination. creating hybrid coins that shouldn't exist. Dramatic off-center strikes where the dies didn't align properly with the planchet, resulting in partial designs with blank crescents showing the raw metal. Multiple strike errors where a coin was struck 2, 3, or even more times, creating overlapping images and often dramatically increasing the coin's weight and thickness. Major die errors including dramatic cracks, breaks, or clashes that create distinctive patterns on the finished coins, and transitional errors that occurred during the changeover between different die states or design periods, capturing a specific moment in minting history. What makes the 2003 P nickel particularly fascinating to collectors is the combination of being recent enough to still be findable but old enough to have had time for the truly rare specimens to emerge and be recognized by the numismatic community. And there's something psychologically compelling about the idea that you could walk into any bank tomorrow, buy $50 worth of nickel rolls for face value, search through them at home, and potentially discover a coin worth $3 million hiding among hundreds of common examples. This isn't just fantasy or hype. While the odds are certainly long, it does happen, and the numismatic press regularly reports stories of valuable modern coins being discovered in circulation, at coin shows, in inherited collections, and in other unexpected places. The value proposition of the $3 million 2003 P nickel rests on several pillars that collectively create its extraordinary worth. First and foremost is the error itself, which must be both dramatic and well documented, meaning it's a recognized variety that's been photographed, cataloged, and authenticated by multiple experts. Second is condition, because even the rarest error in the world will sell for a fraction of its potential if it's damaged, scratched, corroded, or heavily worn. And the multimillion-dollar specimens need to be in essentially perfect mint state condition, preferably graded MS 67 or higher by PCGS or NGC. Third is provenance, the documented history of where the coin came from and how it was preserved, because serious collectors and investors want assurance that they're buying authentic material with clean title. Fourth is market timing, because the rare coin market fluctuates based on economic conditions, collector interest, and availability of competing examples. So a coin might sell for $3 million in a hot market with multiple bidders, but potentially less in a softer market. And fifth is presentation, meaning how the coin is marketed, whether it's offered through a prestigious auction house, whether it has an interesting discovery story, and whether it generates publicity that attracts wealthy collectors who might not otherwise have been aware of its availability. Now let's talk about the specific characteristics that make certain 2003 P nickels worth examining more closely, because while most will be worth only face value, there are telltale signs that indicate you might have something special in your hands. Start by confirming the date and mint mark. You need to see 2003 clearly visible on the obverse and a P mint mark to the right of Jefferson's portrait, indicating Philadelphia production. Then examine the coin carefully under magnification, at least 5x but preferably 10x or higher, looking for any signs of doubling in the letters or numbers, which would indicate a double die variety. Check the alignment of the design, because if it's significantly off-center, showing blank areas where the dies missed part of the planchet, you might have a valuable off-center error. Inspect the surfaces for any unusual marks, lines, or patterns that could indicate die cracks, die breaks, or die clashes. Compare the coin's weight and thickness to standard specifications, because wrong planchet errors and multiple strike errors will often have abnormal weights. And look at the overall rightness of the coin, trusting your instincts if something seems unusual or different from other 2003 P nickels you've examined. One of the most valuable lessons I can share with you is that becoming good at finding valuable coins requires education and practice, and fortunately, both are readily available in the modern age of internet connectivity and active collector communities. Websites like CoinTalk, Reddit's r/coins community, the PCGS and NGC forums, and specialized Facebook groups provide platforms where you can post pictures of questionable coins and get feedback from experienced collectors who can help you determine whether you found something valuable or just another common variety. YouTube channels dedicated to coin collecting offer countless videos showing exactly what different errors and varieties look like, how to identify them, and what they're worth. Reference books like The Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties provide detailed photographs and descriptions of valuable varieties across all denominations of U.S. coins, including specific Jefferson nickel errors and varieties from 2003 and other years. And attending local coin club meetings, regional shows, and national conventions gives you opportunities to examine rare coins in person, talk with dealers and advanced collectors, and develop your eye for quality and rarity. The story of how some of these valuable 2003 P nickels were discovered adds another layer of fascination to their mystique, because unlike ancient coins that require archaeological expeditions or colonial coins that exist primarily in museum collections, these modern treasures were found by ordinary people in everyday situations. There's the account of the bank teller who noticed something unusual about a nickel in her drawer and set it aside, eventually having it authenticated as a major error worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The young collector who bought a few rolls of nickels from his local bank to search for interesting dates and found a wrong planchet error that transformed his college fund from a few $1,000s into enough to pay for his entire education debt-free. The estate sale attendee who purchased a jar of old coins for $20 and discovered it contained a 2003 P error nickel worth more than a luxury car. And countless other stories that prove lightning can strike and ordinary people can find extraordinary treasures if they're observant, educated, and persistent. What separates successful coin hunters from those who never find anything valuable is primarily volume and knowledge. You need to examine enough coins to actually encounter the rare ones, and you need enough knowledge to recognize them when you see them. This means developing a systematic approach to coin searching, whether that's buying and searching through multiple rolls of nickels every week from your bank, carefully examining every nickel you receive as change in daily transactions, visiting multiple banks to ask if they have any customer old coins they'd be willing to sell, attending estate sales and yard sales where old coin collections might be undervalued, or even metal detecting in locations where coins from the early 2000s might have been dropped and lost. Every coin you examine is a lottery ticket, and the more tickets you have, the better your odds of winning. The authentication and grading process deserves special attention because it's absolutely critical to maximizing the value of any potentially rare coin you discover, and unfortunately, this is where many people make costly mistakes that reduce their eventual profits. If you find a 2003 P nickel that you believe might be a valuable error, do not attempt to clean it, polish it, or improve its appearance in any way, because even gentle cleaning can leave microscopic scratches that professional graders will detect, often resulting in the coin being labeled as cleaned or improperly cleaned, which drastically reduces its value. Instead, handle the coin only by its edges, store it in a proper coin holder or flip to prevent damage, and research whether the error you've identified is a known, cataloged variety or something new. For known varieties, you can compare your coin to reference photographs and descriptions to assess whether you likely have an authentic example, but for major potential discoveries, you'll want professional authentication sooner rather than later. This means submitting your coin to PCGS, NGC, or another reputable third-party grading service, where experts will examine it, verify its authenticity, identify any errors or varieties, assign a numerical grade based on condition, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a label describing the coin. This process typically takes several weeks and costs anywhere from $30 for basic service to several $100s for premium expedited service. But for a coin potentially worth thousands or millions, it's a tiny investment that provides crucial authentication and can increase the coin's marketability enormously. Let's explore some of the specific error types that have made certain 2003p nickels exceptionally valuable, starting with wrong planchet errors, which occur when a planchet intended for one denomination accidentally gets struck by dies intended for a different denomination. Imagine a dime planchet somehow making its way into the nickel striking chamber and being struck with nickel dies, creating a coin that has the design of a nickel but the size, weight, and edge characteristics of a dime. These errors are incredibly rare because modern minting facilities have multiple safeguards and quality control measures specifically designed to prevent this type of mistake, including automated systems that verify planchet specifications before striking and visual inspections at various stages of production. When a wrong planchet error does occur and escape detection, entering circulation and eventually being discovered by a collector, it represents a perfect convergence of multiple failures in the quality control system, making it extremely rare and therefore extremely valuable. A 2003p nickel struck on a dime planchet, for example, might sell for $50,000 to $500,000 or more depending on condition, and if it's an exceptional specimen in perfect mint state condition, the value could climb into the millions. Off-center strikes represent another category of valuable errors, occurring when the planchet isn't properly centered between the dies during striking, resulting in part of the design being impressed onto the planchet while another part of the planchet remains blank, showing just the raw metal surface. The value of off-center errors depends largely on the degree of misalignment and whether the date remains visible, because a coin that's off-center but shows the date is generally worth more than one where the date has been struck off the planchet entirely. A 2003p nickel that's 10 to 15% off-center with full date visible might be worth $100 to $1,000, while one that's 30 to 50% off-center could bring $1,000 to $10,000 or more, and exceptionally dramatic examples showing 60 to 90% off-center strikes have sold for 5 or even 6 figures when they're in pristine condition and represent particularly photogenic or unusual examples of this error type. Multiple strike errors occur when a coin is struck more than once, either because it didn't eject properly from the striking chamber after the first strike or because it somehow fed back through the system for additional strikes. These create coins with overlapping images, often showing doubled or tripled design elements, increased thickness and weight, and sometimes dramatic distortions if the planchet rotated between strikes. A 2003p nickel struck twice with significant rotation between strikes might show 2 partial Jefferson portraits at different angles, 2 sets of lettering, and obvious doubling of all design elements. Such pieces can be worth $5,000 to $50,000 or more depending on how dramatic the error is and what condition the coin is in, and truly exceptional examples with 3 or more strikes, perfect preservation, and strong visual appeal have reached 6-figure prices at major auctions. Die errors including cracks, breaks, and clashes create distinctive patterns on struck coins that can make them valuable to variety collectors, even when the actual error isn't as dramatic as wrong planchets or major off-center strikes. A die crack appears as a raised line on the struck coin, representing a crack that developed in the die itself and transferred to every coin struck by that die until the crack was noticed and the die was removed from service. Major die breaks, where a piece of the die actually separates, create blank areas on struck coins or additional raised metal blobs called cuds that are highly sought after by error collectors. Die clashes, which occur when the 2 dies strike each other without a planchet between them, transfer portions of one die's design onto the other die's surface, creating coins with faint ghost images or unexpected design elements. While most die errors on 2003p nickels are worth only modest premiums of $10 to $100, dramatic examples that create strong visual effects and have good eye appeal can be worth considerably more, especially if they're well-preserved and certified by major grading services. The market for rare coins, particularly modern errors like valuable 2003p nickels, has evolved dramatically over the past few decades, driven by several factors including the rise of third-party grading services that provide authentication and standardized condition assessment, the growth of online auction platforms that connect buyers and sellers worldwide, increasing recognition of rare coins as alternative investments that can diversify portfolios beyond traditional stocks and bonds, and greater public awareness created by television shows, YouTube channels, and social media content about coin collecting. This increased interest and participation has driven prices higher for the best examples while also making it easier for ordinary people to learn about, identify, and sell valuable coins they discover. 30 years ago, if you found a rare error coin, you might have struggled to find a dealer willing to pay fair value, and you certainly wouldn't have had instant access to price guides, auction records, and expert opinions the way you do today with internet resources. Now, discovering a valuable coin is just the beginning of a process that can include professional authentication, strategic timing for selling to maximize value, choosing between auction and private sale, and leveraging social media and online platforms to generate interest from potential buyers worldwide. Let me share some perspective on the realistic expectations you should have when searching for valuable 2003 P nickels, because while I want to inspire you with the incredible potential values these coins can reach, I also want to keep you grounded in reality so you don't get discouraged if your first 100 or 1,000 searches don't yield instant millions. The truth is that most 2003 P nickels you find will be worth exactly 5 cents. They'll be common date, common variety examples with no errors, normal strikes, and nothing that makes them particularly special to collectors. And that's perfectly fine because you spent them at face value or perhaps pulled them from your change, so you haven't lost anything by examining them. Of the nickels that do have some kind of error or variety, most will be minor issues worth perhaps a few dollars to a few tens of dollars. Small die chips, weak strikes, minor off-centers that barely qualify as errors, or post-strike damage that looks interesting but doesn't add collector value. These are still fun to find and can be satisfying to collect even if they're not life-changing discoveries. Then there's a much smaller category of more significant errors worth hundreds to low thousands of dollars. These might include moderate off-center strikes showing 20 to 30% misalignment, better doubled die varieties with clear doubling visible to the naked eye, or scarcer die states showing interesting cracks or breaks. Finding even one of these in a year of searching would be a success that validates your efforts and potentially funds continued searching. And finally, at the very top of the pyramid, there are the ultra-rare, museum-quality pieces worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. These are the wrong planchet errors, dramatic multiple strikes, unique varieties, and other anomalies that occur perhaps once in many millions of strikes and may have only a handful of known examples. Finding one of these is genuinely life-changing, but it's also genuinely rare, so you need to approach coin searching with the mindset of enjoying the hunt itself rather than expecting to get rich quick. The educational journey that comes with serious coin collecting is one of the hobby's greatest rewards, even aside from any monetary profits you might achieve, because learning about minting processes, metal allergy, design history, and numismatic terminology expands your knowledge in fascinating ways. You'll develop skills in careful observation as you train your eye to spot subtle differences between coins that initially all looked the same. You'll learn about American history, as different coin designs, mint marks, and production circumstances reflect the historical context in which they were created. You'll gain insights into economics and markets as you track price trends, understand supply and demand dynamics, and recognize how external factors like metal prices, collecting trends, and economic conditions affect coin values, and you'll potentially build relationships with other collectors who share your interests and can become friends, mentors, or valuable contacts in the numismatic community. As we conclude our exploration of the 2003 P. Jefferson nickel worth up to $3 million, I want to leave you with a clear action plan that you can implement immediately to increase your chances of finding valuable coins. First, start searching today. Gather all the loose change in your house, Empty your coin jars, check your car's cup holders, and carefully examine every nickel you find, setting aside any 2003 P examples for closer inspection. Second, establish a bank relationship, where you can regularly purchase rolls of nickels for face value to search, building a sustainable supply of material to examine. Third, invest in education by watching expert videos, reading reference books, joining online communities, and constantly improving your ability to identify errors and varieties. Fourth, get proper equipment, including at minimum a decent loupe or magnifying glass, good lighting, reference materials, and proper storage supplies to protect any potentially valuable finds. Fifth, be patient and persistent, because finding truly valuable coins is a long game where consistency and volume matter more than luck. Sixth, network with other collectors who can provide advice, share discoveries, and help you avoid costly mistakes when you do find something potentially valuable. And seventh, when you find something interesting, get it properly authenticated and graded before making any selling decisions, because professional certification can dramatically increase both the price you can ask and the likelihood that serious collectors will take your coins seriously. The world of error coins and rare varieties is absolutely thrilling, offering the perfect combination of treasure hunting excitement, historical education, and genuine profit potential for those who approach it with knowledge, dedication, and patience. The 2002 D and 2003 P Jefferson nickels we've explored today represent just two examples among thousands of potentially valuable coins that could be hiding in circulation right now, waiting for someone observant and knowledgeable enough to recognize their significance and claim the rewards. So the next time you receive a nickel and change, don't just toss it in a jar or spend it without looking. Take a moment to check the date, examine the mint mark, and look for anything unusual, because that 5 seconds of attention could literally change your life if you happen to be holding one of these incredible numismatic treasures worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hub today, and remember, fortune truly does favor the observant. So keep your eyes open, keep learning, and keep searching, because your $1,000,000 coin might be closer than you think. If you found this information valuable, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin stories and hunting tips, and drop a comment below sharing what coins you've found or what you're planning to search for next, because I love hearing about your discoveries and your journey in this amazing hobby. Until next time, happy hunting, and may your next nickel be the one that changes everything.